Piers Morgan?
Yes, it's a Piers Morgan speaking with Israeli spokesperson Avi Heyman, just asking about the number of civilian casualties in Gaza and whether there's a specific number that the Israeli government is relying upon. Let me just cue that up really quickly.
Yeah, and I guess I haven't seen this yet, but I've heard that Piers actually maybe does a good job.
Trita Parsi was impressed. So.
Maybe that's where I saw it. Yeah, and I've been critical on the show about this whole debate format that seemingly he's just like quadrupling down on in the midst of a genocide. But if Piers is now moving a little bit away from the IDF line,
well, take what you can get when you can get it.
It's a good indicator, maybe a good indicator of where public perception's going.
Piers, we're fighting against Hamas, a genocidal terror organization. I've seen your coverage, your tremendous coverage of what Hamas did to us on October 7th. You and I know they want to do it again and again and again. That's their words, not mine. Now, we'll do what we have to do to go after Hamas, to avoid civilian casualties, something that we have successfully done. Out of that Hamas number that you just gave, more than 14,000 are terrorists that we took out. There's more than 25,000 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists taken off the
How many
back.
civilians do you believe you've killed?
We don't have exact figures, as you know, it's the fog of war.
But you've got exact numbers for Hamas terrorists you've killed. Why wouldn't you know how many civilians you've killed?
Because obviously our focus is to go after the Hamas terrorists. And
hang on, that does imply that you're putting a bigger premium on killing Hamas terrorists in terms of numbers and accountability than you are on innocent civilians. That can't be right, surely. If you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, you must know how many civilians you've killed. Otherwise, you're prioritizing the lives of terrorists over innocent people.
Piers, with respect, don't put words into my mouth, please. I didn't say exactly 14,000. I said around 14,000. Whereas Hamas will come out with precise numbers that statisticians will look at.
Give me a ballpark number for civilians.
Well, you can use the ballpark as far as the Hamas figures, which I reject as being false.
Well, if they're false, why would you give me those?
I gave you the numbers that I had.
No, you told me you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't seem to have any idea how many civilians you've killed. I'm just bemused. Why wouldn't you keep count of both?
I don't have that information to give you, Piers. If I did, I would.
You've literally no idea how many civilians you've been killing.
I can tell you definitively that our aim is to go after Hamas.
No, hang on. I'm sorry to push you on this. That's quite extraordinary. You're an official spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea how many civilians you've killed. I thought you just told me that you were particularly careful about not killing civilians. But if you don't know how many you've killed, how can you say that with any certainty?
Because even if you were to go by a ratio of the Hamas figures, we would still be far ahead of any Western.
That wasn't my question. You know it wasn't my question.
I don't have the information.
You literally have no idea how many civilians you've killed.
It's not that I don't know. I'm not authorized to give the information. I don't have the information.
That's complete nonsense. Why are you authorized to give me the number of terrorists you've killed, but not the number of civilians? I don't understand.
Oh my God.
Can you explain?
Piers, we will go after Hamas. We will ensure that we.
But you want me to believe you're being incredibly careful about how many civilians you're killing, and you have an amazing exemplary record, but you don't know how many civilians you're killing. So how do I know you've been careful?
Piers, when the dust settles, we will come out with the proper numbers. Hamas runs to the press daily with false.
When the dust settles, a lot of people will have died. And you know how many Hamas you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. And I'm just asking you why. Why is it you've kept a record of one, but not the other?
I personally don't have that information to give to you. You can ask me over and over. I'm not going to come up with more information. I don't personally
You don't know?
I don't have that information for you today.
Well, you're an official government spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea.
Piers, I came on here to focus on what's going on with the war.
Well, actually, you came on here to answer my questions, I think.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for you for that.
And I didn't intend to press you on this point because I assumed that you would not respond the way you have. But I've never had an Israeli spokesman who simply said, I have no idea. Particularly after you boasted about the fact that you've been very smart in the way you've avoided killing civilians. How do you know if you've got no idea how many you've killed?
Because I know the way in which the IDF operates. I know the way in which we go after the terrorists in the best possible way. It's not what I've said. It's what General Petraeus has said. It's what John Spencer from West Point has said. It's what multiple British generals have said.
All right, can we pause it for a sec? Because that is such so many revealing things. Great job, Piers Morgan. I mean, he got that. He did not relent. When he says, because it's basically because we're intrinsically moral, right? Like, we are intrinsically the victims, and that's why we can make this case. We are the victims, so you have to believe us, as opposed to having to demonstrate any of that. And when he says that we know what the ratio is between Hamas fighters that we've killed and civilians, and how we're the most moral army in the world and we're being more careful than anybody. I'm not a math person, infamously, but how do you calculate a ratio, Sam? Because I'm pretty sure you need to know total figures, and then you could probably determine which one in the fraction.
You need to know the numerator and the denominator to do that.
That's exactly right. And you can't determine a ratio without knowing the total, which would include then the civilians plus the Hamas fighters.
Right. That would be the denominator, I believe. There's a quality to this with this ratio that they're talking about. Is like a kid's joke. I remember, where one kid asked the other kid, "What time is it?" And the kid goes, "I don't know, but I know it's not 5 o'clock." How do you know it's not 5 o'clock? Well, because I'm supposed to be home at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And this is, we choose a ratio, and that we're just sticking with the ratio. How do we know that we achieve this ratio? Well, because we just know it.
David Petraeus said we're a good
That's
boy.
what we're aiming for. So that's the ratio. That's what we put into our guns. Here's the ratio we want. Now, the ratio, incidentally, is also just grotesque, because we know what that ratio is from reporting from 972 MAG, where it was something like 300 civilians to 1 for a sort of mid to upper level Hamas in the field commander. But the idea that they're maintaining this ratio is a complete fiction. The idea that they know how many Hamas they have killed is also just absurd. It's just absurd.
Right. Well, we know, too, from reporting, it might have been from 972 or Haaretz, I'm forgetting, but that they are making broad determinations about who's a Hamas terrorist, just if you're a male of a certain age. And
100%.
You can be a boy, you can be a young boy, and they'll be like, oh, terrorist, or then they'll quietly say beneath their breath, future terrorist, right?
We also know from 972 MAG, this Israeli publication, and you can really deign it from just what we know from also news reports, that the rules of engagement have been shoot all males.
Yeah.
Period. You don't need to have weapons. They could even be yelling in Hebrew. That's why they shot those 2 hostages, the Israelis did. Redheaded, one of them.
Yeah. Atrios points out, I mean, that's an important point on when he responds 14,000 to Piers when he says, how many Hamas have you killed? Atrios points out 14,000 number is roughly the number of men killed. So that's what they're considering Hamas.
Exactly.
I mean, and by the way, that's pretty close
Every
to the
man
number of
is
children
Hamas
killed,
to
too,
them.
that we know. And, like, why they're not counting civilians, why they're not, or they say they're not counting, then they may know, but they're not going to say it to the public, is that it is, I keep emphasizing this point, much higher than the Hamas-run health ministry totals, because there is no public infrastructure anymore in Gaza. It is gone. So the occupying power that has drones and all of this incredible technology is the one that is in the best position right now to make a determination about how many people that they've killed, because there's no way to count the bodies anymore. It's much higher than 35, and God help us when we find out that final figure. But they're trying to act and finish the job with the Rafah final solution. And so that once it's done and we know that final number, then the job will be finished, and they'll hope, like, say, hey, Trump will come into office, or Biden may just let us keep doing this, and we'll finally be able to take that beautiful beachfront property in Gaza. Yeah. So, like, that's what they're doing, running out the clock. because the true figures are going to be devastating.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.